She was just a press secretary. Too young, too polished for the auditorium spotlight, Professor Williams sneered. Tossing her a calculus problem meant to break her. Karoline Leavitt didn't flinch, her marker steady as the crowd laughed, but that worn notebook in her hand. It held secrets from a legendary mathematician. So, who was really out of their depth that day? Before we dive into today's story, if you find this video interesting, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming stories. You're also welcome to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Every piece of feedback is truly valuable in helping Crossfire Justice improve. Thank you so much for always being with us. And now, let's jump into this thrilling and unexpected story together. The auditorium at St. Utrell University in Baltimore hums with restless energy, its high ceilings echoing the chatter of students, faculty, and reporters packed into the rows of cushioned seats. The air smells faintly of polished wood and coffee, a fitting backdrop for a seminar on education and politics meant to inspire Karoline Leavitt, only 27 and already the White House press secretary, steps onto the stage, her navy blazer crisp but her smile soft, almost shy. She's here to speak about policy, about bridging divides, but the crowd's eyes are sharp, sizing her up. She's young, blonde, polished too polished. Some whisper, Professor Williams, a graying academic with a reputation for shredding egos, watches from the podium. His glasses glint under the stage lights as he cuts her off mid-sentence, his voice smooth but barbed. Mrs. Leavitt, policy is one thing, but let's see if a press secretary can handle real math. Shall we? The room stirs, a ripple of laughter spreading. He clicks a remote, and a differential calculus problem dense with integrals and nested functions flashes onto the massive screen behind her. The crowd leans forward, sensing a trap. Karoline's breath catches, her fingers tightening around the note cards in her hand. She's faced tough questions before, but humiliation. That's new. Williams gestures to the whiteboard, his smile thin. Go on, solve it, live. The words land like a gauntlet, and the reporters in the back scribble furiously, their pens scratching like distant thunder. Karoline's eyes flicker not with fear, but with something deeper, a quiet hurt mixed with resolve. She's no stranger to being underestimated. But this feels personal. Why is he doing this? She sets her note cards down, her movements slow, deliberate, and picks up a marker. The plastic is cool against her palm, grounding her as her heart pounds. The problem looms, its complexity a deliberate weapon. Students whisper, some giggling, others craning their necks. A young woman in the front row, her hair tied back in a messy bun, watches Karoline closely, her expression unreadable. Williams crosses his arms, leaning against the podium, his confidence a wall. Karoline steps to the whiteboard, the markers tip hovering. Her mind races, not just with equations, but with a memory her father's voice, years ago, saying, "Numbers are honest, Karoline. They don't judge." She draws a breath, steadying herself. The crowd's murmurs fade, and for a moment, it's just her and the problem. She writes the first line, her handwriting neat, precise. The room watches, waiting for her to falter. But there's a stillness in her, a quiet strength that doesn't shout. Williams shifts, his smirk faltering for a fraction of a second. What does she know that he doesn't? The question lingers, unanswered, as her marker moves again. The auditorium at St. Utrell University feels heavier now, the air thick with expectation and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Karoline Leavitt stands alone at the whiteboard, the calculus problem's jagged lines staring back like a challenge she didn't ask for. The marker in her hand feels small, almost fragile, but she grips it tightly, her knuckles pale. Professor Williams lounges against the podium, his arms crossed, a faint chuckle escaping as he leans toward a colleague and whispers, "She's out of her depth." The words carry just far enough to sting, and Karoline's chest tightens not from the math, but from the weight of being reduced to a spectacle. The audience shifts in their seats, some students snickering, others staring with pity or curiosity. A few reporters in the back jot notes, their eyes gleaming with the promise of a headline. Karoline's mind churns, not just with integrals and derivatives, but with a memory that surfaces unbidden late nights in her college dorm. Surrounded by textbooks, her father's voice over the phone saying, "Numbers don't lie. Karoline, they're your truth." That truth feels distant now, buried under the professor's smirk and the crowd's judgment. She doesn't snap back or call out the unfairness. Instead, she lifts the marker and begins writing, her strokes slow and deliberate, each line a quiet act of defiance. The equations take shape, clean and precise, as if she's carving her thoughts into the world. A student in the front row, Sarah, her hair pulled back in a loose bun, leans forward, her eyes narrowing. She notices Karoline's notebook on the table, its edges frayed, the cover worn from years of use. Pages peek out, filled with handwritten formulas, annotations in neat, careful script. Sarah nudges her friend, whispering, "That's not just any notebook. There's something about Karoline's calm, her refusal to flinch. That feels different. Not the polished press secretary they expected, but something deeper, something tested." Karoline's heart races, but her face stays steady, her lips pressed into a thin line. She's been underestimated before by professors, by colleagues, by rooms full of people who saw her youth and her title and assumed she was less. Each time, she'd swallowed the hurt and kept going, not because she wanted to prove them wrong, but because she needed to prove herself right. The problem on the board is complex, meant to trip her up, but her mind slices through it, finding patterns where others see chaos. She writes another line, then pauses, her eyes flicking to the crowd. A few students have stopped laughing, their faces softening as they watch her work. Professor Williams shifts, his smirk still in place but his fingers tapping restlessly on the podium. He expected her to crumble, to stammer or walk away. Instead, she's solving his puzzle, and the room can feel it. Karoline's thoughts drift to her mentor, Dr. Evelyn Hart, whose voice still echoes in her mind. "Math is a language. Karoline, speak it clearly, and no one can ignore you." She wants to honor that voice, but the weight of the moment presses down hundreds of eyes. The professor's taunts, the cameras waiting for her to fail. She pushes the doubt away, focusing on the numbers. They're her anchor, her truth. Sarah, still watching, pulls out her phone, her thumbs hovering over the screen. She wants to search something, but she hesitates, glancing at Karoline's notebook again. The auditorium hums with tension, the kind that builds when a story is about to shift. Karoline finishes the first part of the problem and steps back, her eyes scanning her work. It's correct, she knows it, but the professor hasn't checked it yet. He's too busy basking in his own cleverness, certain she'll falter soon. The crowd waits, their whispers growing quieter. Karoline's fingers brush the notebook's worn cover, a small, grounding gesture. There's a story in that notebook, in her silence, but no one knows it yet. What's she hiding behind that calm? The auditorium at St. Annell University in Baltimore feels like a pressure cooker, the air charged with the weight of 1,000 eyes. The massive screen behind Karoline Leavitt glows with a new calculus problem, its partial derivatives and boundary conditions sprawling like a labyrinth designed to trap her. She stands at the whiteboard, marker in hand, her navy blazer slightly creased from the tension in her shoulders. Professor Williams paces the stage, his polished shoes clicking against the wood, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Come on, Ms. Leavitt. We're all waiting," he says, his tone sharper now, laced with a mockery that invites the crowd to join in. Laughter ripples through the students, louder this time, egged on by his taunts. A few reporters in the back exchange glances, their notebooks open, sensing a moment that could make or break a headline. Karoline's jaw tightens, a subtle movement, but her eyes stay fixed on the problem. Her chest aches not from the math, which she's unraveling with a clarity that surprises even her, but from the weight of being judged before she's even begun. She's faced rooms like this before, people who saw her youth, her title, and assumed she was a lightweight. But this feels different, more deliberate, like Williams wants to carve her failure into the public's memory. She keeps writing, her solutions elegant and precise, each line a quiet rebellion against the professor's smug certainty. Her hand moves steadily, tracing the contours of equations she's solved 100 times in quieter moments, when no one was watching. A student in the front row, Sarah, her hair tied back in a messy bun, leans forward. Her eyes wide, she whispers to her friend. "She's actually good." The friend nods, her phone already out, recording the scene. Karoline doesn't hear them, but she feels the shift in the room, a subtle change in the air, like a tide beginning to turn. Her mind flickers to her father, his voice a steady anchor. "Numbers don't care who you are, Karoline. They just are." That truth keeps her grounded. Even as Williams ups the ante, he clicks the remote again, and a third problem appears on the screen. Impossibly dense, a tangle of multivariable calculus that even advanced students would struggle with. The crowd gasps, a low murmur spreading. Williams turns to Karoline, his smile cold. "Let's end this," he says, the words dripping with finality, as if he's already written her defeat. The laughter dies down, replaced by a tense silence. Karoline pauses, her marker hovering over the board. Her heart pounds. Not from doubt she knows she can solve this, but from the realization that this isn't just about math. It's about her worth, her place, her right to be here. She's tired of being the one who has to prove herself. But she's not done yet. Her eyes scan the problem, her mind slicing through its complexity like a knife. She could walk away, let Williams have his moment. But something inside her refuses. Not anger, but a quiet resolve. The kind that comes from years of being underestimated and still standing. Sarah, still watching, clutches her phone tighter, her thumbs itching to search something about Karoline's past. A reporter in the back, his camera rolling, zooms in on Karoline's face, catching the flicker of determination in her eyes. The auditorium feels like it's holding its breath. Every sound amplified: the scratch of the marker, the creak of a chair, the faint hum of the projector. William stops pacing, his arms crossed again, but there's a restlessness in his posture now, a crack in his confidence. Karoline's notebook lies open on the table, its worn pages a silent testament to years of study, of nights spent chasing truths that others overlooked. She writes the first line of the new problem, her hand steady, but her mind races with the question: who's watching her now? And what do they see? Someone in the crowd is leaning forward, their gaze intense, but she can't place them. The room waits, suspended in a moment that feels like it could tip either way. The auditorium at St. Annelle University in Baltimore feels smaller now, the walls seeming to close in as the tension thickens. The third calculus problem looms on the screen, its multivariable equations a gauntlet meant to crush Karoline Leavitt's credibility. She stands at the whiteboard, her navy blazer slightly askew, the marker in her hand moving with a rhythm that feels almost instinctive. Her eyes scan the problem, piecing it together like a puzzle she solved in quieter, less hostile rooms. Her solutions flow onto the board, each line crisp and clear, a language of logic that silences the room's restless hum. The crowd, once eager for her failure, now watches with a mix of awe and unease. Professor Williams, his confidence a fading shield, falters at the podium. His smirk fades as he squints at her work, his fingers twitching as if searching for a flaw that isn't there. Karoline's heart races, not from the math, she's in her element now, but from the weight of the moment. She's proving something, not just to Williams, but to herself, and the thought both steadies and terrifies her. She's been here before, in rooms where her voice was dismissed, her youth a strike against her, but this time, the stakes feel higher, the eyes sharper, the judgment louder. She writes faster, her mind cutting through the problem's complexity with a precision honed over years of study. A memory flickers. Dr. Evelyn Hart, her mentor, sitting across from her in a cluttered office, saying, "Math doesn't care about your title, Karoline. It only asks for your truth." That truth is her weapon now, and she wields it quietly. In the front row, Sarah, the student with the messy bun, leans forward, her eyes locked on Karoline's notebook, left open on the table. The cover, worn and creased, bears a handwritten inscription, "Leavitt, advised by Dr. Evelyn Hart." Sarah's breath catches. Dr. Hart was a legend, a mathematician who reshaped the field and mentored only one student before retiring. Could it be her? Sarah's hands tremble as she pulls out her phone, her thumbs fumbling to Google the name. The screen lights up, and her eyes widen at the confirmation: Karoline Leavitt, Hart's sole protege. Sarah nudges her friend, her whisper urgent but soft. She's not just a press secretary. The friend glances at the notebook, then at Karoline, her expression shifting from skepticism to curiosity. Karoline finishes the problem, her final line a flourish of clarity. She steps back, her chest rising and falling, and turns to Williams. Her voice is soft, steady, cutting through the silence. "Check my work." The words are simple, but they land like a challenge, not to his intellect, but to his assumptions. Williams scoffs, his laugh forced, brittle. "You expect me to believe you're some prodigy," he says, but the doubt in his voice betrays him. His eyes dart to the board, then back to her, searching for a way to reclaim control. The crowd stirs, sensing a shift. A reporter in the back zooms his camera, capturing the flicker of uncertainty on Williams' face. Karoline doesn't flinch, her gaze steady, her silence louder than his bluster. She's not here to gloat or fight, she's here to stand in her truth. And that truth is starting to crack the facade of his authority. Sarah's phone buzzes with a notification. A tweet already circulating: White House press secretary schools professor in calculus. The auditorium's energy shifts, the whispers growing louder. Phones lighting up in the dark. Karoline's notebook lies open, its pages a quiet testament to a past. The room is only beginning to understand. William steps toward the board, his movements stiff, as if he's walking into a trap he set himself. He scans her work, his lips tightening, but he says nothing. The silence stretches, heavy with possibility. Karoline's fingers brush the marker, her eyes distant, as if she's seeing something beyond the room. Dr. Hart's smile, perhaps, or her own younger self, hunched over that notebook, chasing answers. The crowd waits, their breath held. But someone else is watching, too. Someone whose presence feels heavier than the rest. Who are they? And what do they know? The auditorium at St. Annell University in Baltimore crackles with a new energy. the kind that comes when a room realizes it's witnessing something rare. The fluorescent lights hum softly, casting long shadows across the rows of students, faculty, and reporters, all frozen in a moment that feels like it could tip the world. Karoline Leavitt stands at the whiteboard, her navy blazer slightly rumpled, her face calm but her eyes bright with a fire that's been smoldering since the seminar began. The third calculus problem, a beast of multivariable equations, lies solved behind her, its elegant solution a silent rebuke to Professor William's smug challenge. The professor stands at the podium, his hands gripping its edges, his face a mask of forced composure. The crowd's earlier laughter has vanished, replaced by a restless murmur that grows louder with each passing second. Sarah, the student in the front row with the messy bun, breaks the silence. She stands, her phone clutched tightly, her voice trembling but clear. She studied under Dr. Evelyn Hart. Karoline Leavitt was her only protégée. The words land like a spark in dry grass, and the auditorium erupts in whispers, a wave of shock rippling through the seats. Phones light up as students and reporters scramble to tweet, their screens glowing in the dim light. Karoline Leavitt trends within minutes. The words, math genius, and Dr. Hart, spreading like wildfire. Karoline doesn't gloat or acknowledge the commotion. She simply picks up her worn notebook from the table, its pages thick with years of advanced proofs, and hands it to Williams. Her movements are steady, almost gentle, but there's a weight to the gesture, a quiet demand for him to see her. "Look at it," she says softly, her voice cutting through the noise. Williams takes the notebook, his fingers hesitant, as if it might burn him. His eyes flick over the pages, but his jaw tightens, refusing to yield. A senior professor, Dr. Chen, rises from the audience, his gray hair catching the light, his face stern but curious. He's a quiet legend in the math department, known for his fairness and his disdain for showmanship. "Let me see that," he says, his voice low but commanding. The crowd parts as he steps forward, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. He takes the notebook from Williams, who relinquishes it with a scowl, and begins scanning Karoline's work. The room watches, breath held, as his eyes move over the pages, lingering on the intricate proofs, the meticulous annotations. His nod is slow, deliberate, and when he speaks, his words carry the weight of authority, flawless. He says, looking at Karoline with something like respect. The crowd gasps, then bursts into applause, the sound rolling through the auditorium like thunder. William stammers, his voice rising in a weak protest. "This doesn't prove anything," he snaps, but the words sound hollow, drowned out by the growing cheers. Reporters type furiously, their cameras trained on Karoline, capturing every moment. Students clap, some standing, their faces alight with excitement. Sarah's friend, still filming on her phone, whispers, "This is going viral." Karoline stands still, her hands clasped in front of her, her heart pounding not with triumph but with a strange mix of relief and vulnerability. She spent years hiding this part of herself, her love for math, her time with Dr. Hart, because it never seemed to fit the world's expectations of her. Now, exposed under the auditorium's harsh lights, she feels both seen and fragile. She steps forward, her voice steady, cutting through the noise. "Math isn't about titles," she says, her words clear and deliberate. "It's about truth." The crowd roars, the applause swelling, but Karoline's eyes are distant, as if she's speaking to someone beyond the room. Dr. Hart, perhaps, or her younger self, who needed to hear those words. The reporters swarm, their questions overlapping, but Karoline doesn't answer. She's not here to bask in the spotlight. She's here to reclaim something Williams tried to take. Sarah, still standing, tweets a photo of Karoline's notebook. The inscription, "Leavitt, advised by Dr. Evelyn Hart," clear in the frame. The post spreads, retweeted by students, alumni, even a few mathematicians who knew Hart's legacy. Dr. Chen hands the notebook back to Karoline, his expression softening. "You've done well," he says quietly, and the words hit her harder than the applause. William shifts, his face flushed, his eyes darting to the crowd as if searching for an escape. The tide has turned, and he knows it, but he's not ready to surrender. Karoline meets his gaze, not with anger but with a calm that unsettles him more. The crowd's cheers fade into a hum, and something bigger looms, a reckoning that hasn't yet arrived. What will Williams do now? And how will Karoline face what comes next? The auditorium at St. Annelle University in Baltimore pulses with a raw, electric energy, the kind that hums when a room's expectations shatter. The high ceiling looms over rows of students, faculty, and reporters, their faces lit by the glow of phone screens and the stark auditorium lights. Karoline Leavitt stands near the whiteboard, her navy blazer creased from the weight of the moment, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. The solved calculus problem glows on the screen behind her, its elegant lines a testament to a truth she's carried quietly for years. Professor Williams grips the podium, his knuckles white, his face flushed with a mix of anger and desperation. "This is a distraction," he snaps, his voice cracking like thin ice under pressure. The crowd stirs, but their attention shifts to Dr. Chen, the senior professor with gray hair and a calm authority, who now stands at the whiteboard. He traces Karoline's solutions with a steady hand, his voice measured as he explains their elegance to the audience. "This isn't just correct," he says, turning to face the room. "It's masterful." The students gasp, their murmurs swelling into cheers. Sarah, the student with the messy bun, stands again, her phone still in hand, her voice bold now. "You tried to humiliate her, but she's teaching us." The words ignite the crowd, and applause erupts, punctuated by the click of cameras and the soft buzz of phones filming. Karoline Math Genius trends across social media, tweets piling up with clips of her solutions and Sarah's outburst. Karoline feels the noise like a distant wave, her heart steady but heavy. She's not here to tear Williams down, though part of her, the part that's been underestimated one too many times, wants him to feel the sting of his own misjudgment. Instead, she steps forward, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the chaos. "Dr. Hart, my mentor, taught me that math is a universal language," she says, her eyes scanning the crowd, not accusing but inviting. "It doesn't care who you are or what others think of you. It just asks you to speak honestly." The room quiets, her words turning the seminar into something unexpected, an impromptu masterclass. Students lean forward, some jotting notes, others nodding as she explains the problem's logic. Her voice warm, like she's teaching a friend. She shares a memory of Dr. Hart, late nights in a cramped office, the older woman's laughter as they wrestled with equations. She'd say, "Karoline, the numbers will always listen, even when people don't." The crowd is captivated, their phones lowered, their eyes fixed on her. Karoline's chest aches, not from the victory unfolding, but from the vulnerability of bearing this part of herself, a part she's kept hidden behind her press secretary title, her polished exterior. She's spent years proving she belongs, but this moment feels different, like she's claiming a piece of herself she'd almost forgotten. William slumps in his chair, his authority crumbling with every word she speaks. His eyes dart to the crowd, then to Dr. Chen, searching for an ally. But none comes. The senior professor nods at Karoline, his expression a mix of pride and resolve. "She's the real deal," he says to a reporter who's edged closer, microphone in hand. The words spread, picked up by the press, tweeted and retweeted until they echo beyond the auditorium's walls. Reporters swarm Dr. Chen, their questions overlapping. But Karoline stays quiet, her gaze distant, as if she's seeing Dr. Hart's face in the crowd. Sarah, still standing, posts another tweet, this one a clip of Karoline's speech, captioned, "She's not just smart, she's inspiring." The post goes viral, shared by students, educators, even a few mathematicians who knew Hart's work. Karoline feels the weight of their support. But beneath her calm exterior, a question lingers. Is this enough? She could stop now, let the crowd's applause carry her out. But something deeper. Dr. Hart's voice, her father's faith. Her own stubborn heart urges her to keep going, not to win, but to honor the truth she's fought for. Williams shifts in his seat, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly. He opens his mouth, perhaps to protest, but no words come. The crowd's cheers fade into a hum, and Karoline's eyes meet his, not with triumph, but with a quiet strength that unnerves him. The reporters turn their cameras on him now, sensing his unraveling. Dr. Chen steps back, his work done, but his presence lingers. A reminder of the fairness Williams ignored. Karoline's notebook lies open on the table, its worn pages a silent witness to her journey. The auditorium feels alive, charged with the promise of something bigger. A reckoning, a lesson, a truth that's only beginning to take hold. What's she feeling beneath that calm? And what will she choose next? The auditorium at St. Annelle University in Baltimore feels softer now. The sharp edges of tension dulled by the hum of voices and the shuffle of feet. The seminar has ended, but the room doesn't empty. Students linger in clusters, their faces bright with a mix of awe and excitement. Some still clutching their phones, others scribbling notes from Karoline Leavitt's impromptu lesson. The massive screen behind the whiteboard is dark, the solved calculus problems no longer glowing, but their impact lingers like a quiet pulse. Karoline stands near the stage, her navy blazer unbuttoned, her posture relaxed but her eyes heavy with the weight of what's just unfolded. She's surrounded by students, their questions tumbling over each other. How did she learn to solve like that? What was Dr. Hart like? Does she still love math? Her answers are gentle, her voice warm, like she's speaking to friends rather than a crowd. But inside, her heart is a tangle of relief and something deeper, a grief she hasn't named. She's spent years proving herself. But this moment, being seen not as a press secretary but as a mathematician, feels like a homecoming and a wound all at once. Dr. Chen, the senior professor with gray hair and a steady presence, weaves through the crowd, his expression soft but purposeful. He reaches Karoline and places a hand on her shoulder, his touch light but grounding. "Evelyn would be proud," he says, his voice low, meant only for her. The words hit like a wave, and Karoline's eyes glisten. A shimmer of tears, she blinks away. She hasn't heard her mentor's name spoken like that in years, not with such warmth, such certainty. Her fingers tighten around her notebook, a gift from Dr. Hart. Its worn cover a map of late nights and hard-won truths. She lets out a shaky breath, her chest loosening as if a knot inside her has begun to unravel. The memory of Dr. Hart, her sharp laugh, her insistence that math was a language of honesty floods back. And for a moment, Karoline feels her mentor standing beside her. Across the room, Professor Williams is cornered by reporters, their microphones thrust forward, their questions relentless. His face is pale, his tie askew, his earlier confidence reduced to a flicker. "I misjudged her," he mutters, the apology forced. barely audible over the hum of the crowd. The reporters scribble, their cameras clicking, but William's eyes avoid Karoline, as if meeting her gaze would burn. She doesn't gloat or acknowledge his words. She only nods, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, her silence louder than his grudging admission. She's not here to tear him down. She's here to stand in her truth. And that truth is enough. A student, a young woman with braided hair and a shy smile, steps forward, holding out a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," she says, her voice trembling. Karoline takes the note, her fingers brushing the paper's edge. She unfolds it later, when the crowd thins, and reads, "You made me love math again." The words pierce her, not with pride, but with a quiet ache. A reminder of why she fought through William's taunts. The crowd's laughter, her own doubts. She tucks the note into her pocket, her hand lingering there, as if to hold on to the moment. The auditorium buzzes with chatter, phones still glowing with tweets and videos. Karoline Math Genius now trending nationwide. Sarah, the student with the messy bun, posts another clip, this one of Karoline answering a student's question with a smile. Captioned, "She's not just brilliant, she's kind." The post spreads, shared by educators, students, even a few of Dr. Hart's old colleagues. Reporters swarm Dr. Chen now, asking about Karoline's work, her connection to Hart. But he deflects with a nod toward her. "Ask her," he says, his voice firm. Karoline feels their eyes, their questions, but she's not ready to answer. She's still processing the weight of being seen, not as a title or a target, but as herself. Her thoughts drift to her father, his voice on those late-night calls. "You're enough, Karoline, just as you are." She's carried that belief through every challenge. But today, it feels truer, heavier. William slips toward the exit, his shoulders hunched, the reporters trailing him like shadows. He pauses at the door, glancing back at Karoline. But she doesn't meet his gaze. She's surrounded by students now, their voices a soft chorus, their gratitude a balm for the hurt she's carried. Dr. Chen lingers nearby, watching her with a quiet pride that feels like a bridge to Dr. Hart's memory. Karoline's notebook rests on the table, its pages open, a testament to a journey that's brought her here. The truth doesn't need to shout anymore, it's in her voice, her work, the note in her pocket. But as the crowd thins and the auditorium grows quieter, a question lingers. What will this moment mean for her tomorrow? And how will it shape the path ahead? The soft hum of Washington, D.C. As morning traffic filters through the window of Karoline Leavitt's office, a small space tucked into the labyrinth of the White House. It's been days since the seminar at St. Annell University in Baltimore, but the world hasn't quite moved on. Karoline sits at her desk, her navy blazer draped over the chair, her fingers tracing the edge of a folded note in her pocket. The note, scrawled by a student with braided hair, reads, "You made me love math again." She hasn't shown it to anyone, hasn't posted it online, but she carries it like a talisman, a reminder of why she stood at that whiteboard, marker in hand. Under the weight of 1,000 judging eyes, her computer screen glows with emails, policy briefings, press schedules, but her phone buzzes with notifications that tell a different story. Clips from the seminar have amassed millions of views, shared across platforms with hashtags like Karoline Math Genius and Truth in Numbers. Commenters call her a hero, a prodigy, a voice for the underestimated. She scrolls through a few, her lips curving slightly, but her heart feels heavier than the praise suggests. She's back to her press secretary duties, answering questions about budgets and diplomacy. But something's changed. The world sees her differently now, not just as a title, but as a woman who turned a trap into a lesson, a humiliation into a moment of grace. St. Enel University issued a statement praising her contribution, a carefully worded acknowledgement that skirts the edges of apology. Professor Williams, meanwhile, has taken a leave of absence, his reputation dented, his name now tied to a misstep the internet won't forget. Karoline doesn't follow the news about him, she doesn't need to. His muttered apology in the auditorium, forced and feeble, was enough. She didn't come to Baltimore to ruin him. She came to speak about education. And somehow, she did more. Her thoughts drift to Dr. Hart, her mentor, whose worn notebook still sits on her desk at home, its pages a bridge to a past she'd almost buried. Dr. Chen's words, Evelyn would be proud, echo in her mind, a quiet validation that means more than the viral videos. She wonders what Dr. Hart would say now, if she'd laugh that sharp, knowing laugh and tell her to keep going. Karoline's fingers brush the note again, and she thinks of the student who wrote it, her shy smile, her trembling hand. That moment, not the applause or the headlines, is what keeps her grounded. Back in Baltimore, the ripples of that day spread. Students at St. Enel have started a math club in Karoline's name, a small group meeting in a basement classroom, solving problems and sharing stories of being underestimated. Sarah, the student with the messy bun, is their unofficial leader. Her tweets about Karoline still gaining traction. Dr. Chen, inspired by the seminar, has begun mentoring again, taking on a few students who remind him of Karoline's quiet fire. The university's math department, once overshadowed by flashier programs, sees a surge in applications. Students drawn by the story of a press secretary who made numbers sing. Karoline hears about these changes in bits and pieces, emails from Sarah, a call from Dr. Chen, a news article forwarded by a colleague. Each one lands softly, like a stone in a still pond, sending out ripples she hadn't expected. She's become a symbol of resilience and intellect, not just for mathematicians, but for anyone who's been judged before they could speak. Yet, sitting in her office, she feels the weight of that symbol, the pressure to be more than human. She's still Karoline, still the woman who doubts herself late at night, who misses her father's voice, who wonders if she's enough. The note in her pocket anchors her, a reminder that her fight wasn't for fame, but for moments like that student's smile. She stands, slipping on her blazer, and heads to a briefing. Her steps steady but her heart full. The world moves on, its attention shifting to new stories, new scandals. But Karoline's quiet victory lingers. She thinks of her father, his words about numbers being honest, and of Dr. Hart, who taught her to speak their language. She thinks of the auditorium, the crowd, the truth that unfolded without a shout. As she steps into the briefing room, the note still in her pocket, she feels a calm resolve, because sometimes you don't need to shout to be heard. You just stand still and let the truth echo. And as she faces the reporter's questions, she wonders what will that echo inspire next. Karoline folded the student's note and slipped it into her pocket, her fingers lingering on its worn edge. The auditorium was empty now, but its silence carried her truth. She didn't need to shout. Her steady hand on the marker had spoken enough. And that's when the truth doesn't need to shout anymore. What echoes louder than victory sometimes? It's the quiet courage to stand in your own light, letting the world catch up.